Accused of being out of touch with some voters, and one Democratic senator from Hawaii thinks she knows why. They're too smart.
One of the things that we Democrats have a really hard time is connecting to people's hearts instead of here. We have a really hard time doing that, and one of the reasons that it was told to me at one of our retreats was that we Democrats know so much. That is true, and we have to kind of tell everybody how smart we are.
Exactly. Here to react, former White House communications director, very smart guy in his own right, author of Trump, the Blue-Collar President, Anthony Scaramucci. Anthony, is that the problem with Democrats? They're too smart?
Well, I mean, listen, I do write about that in the book. I mean, the problem is that they think they're too smart, and so they've totally disengaged from a very large group of people. The other thing they're doing is they're calling people deplorable, white ethnocentrics, nationalists, racists. And so they're missing the point. Like, the American people really just want, like, a really good job and some aspiration for their children. And so when she's sitting there in that sort of nonsense, acting in that limousine liberal sort of a way, they've opened up a very wide berth for somebody like President Trump to stay in that lane and continue to galvanize his base.
The country's changed so much, and we saw that in the last election. It's no longer the establishment that necessarily is going to win. It could be an outsider who can connect with the people and who can relate, and Middle America found that in President Trump. Who can the Democrats put up that could compete with him?
Oh, I actually don't think there's anybody that can compete with President Trump. And I know people will say, oh, geez, come up with somebody. But look, this guy...
Joe Biden says he's the most qualified.
Well, he's the most qualified, and I like Vice President Biden, but he's going to have a very tough time debating somebody like President Trump. I mean, if you look at Vice President Biden's career, every time he goes into contact with the enemy, he fumbles the football on the stage.
Tom Steyer had a big day yesterday, the billionaire.
Okay, so these guys are super untested. Trust me, I was super untested. You go into that arena with these guys and that oppositional research. You showed that beautiful young kid with the Burl cream in his hair. He hasn't been oppoed yet. Okay, so wait till he gets oppoed. Okay, then he's going to start having a rough time. And what ends up happening is a guy like President Trump is battle tested, and he actually understands the base super well. That's a clear indication that they don't understand the base. Now, Beto O'Rourke will come into this game. But again, he probably doesn't understand the fastballs are going to be coming out.
And he met with former President Obama yesterday. Well, if the question is this, Anthony, if the Democrats got the message so wrong, you know, we're much smarter, why'd they win the House?
Well, I think that has to do with the way historical things happen in the United States in terms of the American electorate likes a check on power. And if you go back over 100 years, I think George W. Bush during a war kept the House, but most times presidents lose the House in a situation like this. And if you look at President Obama in 2010, he lost 63 seats. I think President Trump lost 38 or 39 seats, something like that. So it wasn't really that stupendous. And if you look at what happened in the Senate, he picked up a few in the Senate. And so at the end of the day, he's very well positioned. He'll have over $1.5 billion, possibly $2 billion. He'll have Air Force One and his personality. And if he's going against people that think that they're smarter than the American people, here's an aphorism from Richard Nixon. He said, you know, the American people will vote for people that they dislike. They gave Richard Nixon a landslide. But what they don't like doing is voting for people that dislike them. And if you look at those statements there it is.
The deplorable thing.
And there's two issues that are coming back to the president. The Paris climate change, this whole global warming thing. There's more countries becoming Trump-like than non-Trump-like.
Right.
And number two is this caravan has emphasized the need for border security to Americans, not Republicans or Democrats, Americans.
No question on those fronts. And then the third leg of the stool is the economy's actually doing very well. You had Stuart on here 5-10 minutes ago. I'm obviously a trained economist. You are still seeing large growth and wage improvements. Stock market is a little sloppy because we're in probably the toughest trade battle that we've had in 70 years. And so the volatility in the market is expressing that. But I predicted the president will cut a great deal for the American people. We'll be here in February or March looking at a deal that frames up nicely that will lead to an increase in wages for the people that senator thinks she's a lot smarter than.
All right.